Ladies and gentlemen, let's cut the crap and get right into it. You ever have one of those weeks where everything just clicks? I'm not talking about some grr nonsense or fairy dust positivity. I mean real habits, real change, and real impact. In just 7 days, I shifted gears on a level that blew my own mind. I didn't win the lottery. I didn't take a magic pill. I built momentum with 5 simple, powerful habits that completely rewired how I think, how I move, how I live. Now, I know what you're thinking. 1 week. Seriously.
Yeah, 1 week.
But here's the kicker. It wasn't easy, and it damn sure wasn't comfortable, and that's exactly why it worked. So buckle up. We're diving into 5 habits that changed everything for me. Mentally, physically, spiritually. And if you're open-minded and willing to push past the excuses, they just might change your life too. Discomfort is something we're biologically wired to avoid. It's in our DNA, a survival mechanism. You touch fire, it burns. You get cold, you seek warmth. That kind of response keeps you alive. But in today's world, discomfort isn't usually life-threatening. It's just uncomfortable. And here's where things get interesting. In a world where we're flooded with convenience, Uber Eats, climate control, binge content, instant everything, we've lost touch with the value of voluntary discomfort. I'm not saying go out and suffer for no reason. I'm saying discomfort is a signal, and if you learn to follow it, not flee from it, it becomes a compass pointing toward growth. The first habit that changed my life was this mental reframing. When something felt hard, awkward, boring, or even scary, I leaned into it. I stopped negotiating with myself. No more hitting snooze. No more waiting until I felt like it. If something made me uncomfortable, I knew there was something valuable on the other side. That shift in mindset turned my days from passive to intentional. Let me give you a real example. Cold showers. I hated them. Every fiber of my body screamed no. But I kept hearing about the mental and physical benefits, discipline, recovery, energy, so I committed. The first morning, I stood there for 5 minutes just staring at the water, but I stepped in, and guess what? I didn't die. I didn't even get sick. I got sharper, more alert, more in control. That discomfort trained my brain. Every time I stepped into that cold, it was a mini mental victory, a reminder that I'm in control, not my feelings, not my comfort zone, me. The same went for hard conversations I was avoiding, for workouts I didn't want to do, for projects I kept putting off because I didn't know where to start. That was all just resistance disguised as comfort. And when I started seeing discomfort as a green light instead of a red one, things shifted fast. One uncomfortable decision leads to another, and suddenly you're stacking wins. That momentum is real, and it only builds if you keep choosing the harder path. Here's the thing. Discomfort doesn't mean danger. But your brain will try to convince you it does. It'll throw every excuse in the book at you. Need rest. You've earned a break. Diet tomorrow. That voice is lying. Not maliciously.
No.
It's just trying to keep you safe. The problem is, safety and growth don't share the same space. You can't evolve by always playing it safe. Growth is a byproduct of stress, tension, challenge. You grow through the discomfort, not around it. Once I accepted that, my tolerance changed. My baseline shifted. What felt hard on Monday felt normal by Friday, and that applies to everything. Mindset, diet, habits, conversations, business, fitness, all of it. You build resilience like a muscle, 1 rep at a time. The rep is the moment you want to stop, quit, avoid, and you don't. You lean in, you push forward. That's where the real work happens. That's where transformation lies. It's not about being extreme or reckless. It's about choosing the thing that challenges you over the thing that soothes you. Every time. And that's not some motivational fluff. That's real world, boots on the ground, personal growth. The people who succeed long term aren't the most talented or the luckiest. They're the ones who've built a relationship with discomfort. They trust it. They even seek it because they know it leads somewhere worthwhile. Waking up with intention is one of the most underrated superpowers we have. Most people roll out of bed and fall straight into reaction mode. Phone in hand, emails, notifications, the chaos starts before their feet even hit the floor. The day owns them before they even have a chance to own the day. That used to be me. I'd wake up groggy, already behind, already distracted, and the rest of the day followed that same pattern, scattered, rushed, unfocused. It wasn't until I made the decision to win the morning that everything else started falling into place. And I don't mean some long, complicated morning ritual with chanting and incense and 20 journal prompts. I mean waking up on purpose, with purpose, and doing a few simple but powerful things to take control from the second I opened my eyes. The first move was waking up early, before the noise, before texts, before work, before the world starts pulling at your attention, that early silence is a weapon. It's space. It's ownership. When I started waking up even just 45 minutes earlier, I noticed my mind wasn't racing yet. I had clarity. That clarity gave me a window to decide how I wanted to feel, how I wanted to show up, what I wanted to build that day. Most people never give themselves that chance. They wake up reacting instead of creating. The next step was movement. Nothing crazy, just getting the blood flowing. Some stretching, some breath work, a short workout. That physical activation sparks mental clarity. Your body tells your brain, we're awake, we're alive, let's go. It doesn't have to be hardcore. It just has to be consistent. A body that moves first thing is a mind that stays sharp all day. There's something primal about moving early. It roots you. It energizes you. It reminds you that you're in control, not sluggish, stuck. And when I skip that movement, I feel it. My whole rhythm is off. Then came the mental hygiene. Then just like I brush my teeth, I started brushing my thoughts. I'd sit quietly, sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 10. No scrolling.
No podcasts.
Just me and my breath. Sometimes I journal. Sometimes I just sit still. That silence gave me a chance to observe what I was carrying. Stress, doubt. Gratitude, excitement, all of it. Getting in touch with that before the day starts is huge. Because if you don't, that stuff will leak out all day in how you talk, how you think, how you treat people. Another key part of winning the morning was deciding the one thing that mattered most that day. Not a to-do list with 19 things. Just one mission, one needle mover. Something that would create momentum, progress, confidence. When you knock out that one key task early, it fuels everything else. You feel productive, focused, and control is addictive. In the best way, you want to keep showing up because you're proving to yourself that you can. Also, hydration and nutrition matter more than most people think in the morning. Your brain is dehydrated after sleep. Drinking a big glass of water before coffee. Game changer. Adding some clean fuel. Fruit, protein. Whatever works for you sets your energy up to last, not crash. When I ignored that, I'd feel foggy and slow by 10 a.m. But when I started treating the morning like a launch pad, not a warm-up, everything clicked into gear. This whole process isn't about discipline for the sake of being rigid. It's about setting a tone, a rhythm. A why you start is usually how you continue. If you start strong, present, and focused, you carry that energy into the meetings, the workouts, the conversations. It becomes who you are, not just what you do. Sweat is therapy. That's something I never understood until I made it a daily, non-negotiable part of my life. And I'm not talking about working out just to look good or hit some arbitrary goal. I'm talking about using physical movement as a mental reset. Every single day, no matter how I felt, no matter how busy I was, no matter what was going on, I made sure to sweep. That decision alone rewired my brain in ways I didn't expect. Because when you move your body with intention, your mind starts sensing up. It gets sharper, quieter, more focused. You start to burn off the anxiety, the stress, the noise. There's something primal and powerful about physically pushing yourself that can't be replicated by scrolling your feed or watching motivational videos. At first, it was hard. Getting up and working out when I felt tired, unmotivated, or overwhelmed wasn't appealing. But that's exactly why it worked. The resistance was the signal. The days I least wanted to train were the days I needed it the most. And I realized that the physical act of sweating was more than just a workout. It was a conversation with myself, a daily meeting with the part of me that wants to grow, push, and evolve. You don't have to be an athlete or a gym rat to get this benefit. You just have to move, walk, run, do push-ups, stretch, shadow box, dance in your kitchen. It's not about intensity. It's about intention and consistency. Something powerful happens when you force your body to go when your mind wants to quit. It builds mental grit. You teach yourself that emotions don't control action. That mood doesn't dictate movement. That's real power. When I started showing up for that daily sweat, I noticed my mind stopped making excuses in other areas too. I started having more clarity during work, more patience in conversations, more confidence when facing tough choices. That mental upgrade came straight from the physical reps, because each drop of sweat became proof. Proof that I could do hard things. Proof that I could finish what I start. Proof that I could rise above the internal noise trying to keep me small. There's also a chemical part of this that's undeniable. When you sweat, your brain lights up, endorphins hit. Dopamine flows. It's biology working in your favor. And when you stack that kind of high every day, naturally it compounds. I started noticing I was happier for no reason. Less reactive, more grounded. That stability didn't come from some external win. It came from consistently showing up and moving through discomfort on my own terms. Sweat became the signal that I was alive and engaged with life, not just surviving it. There's also something sacred about making time for yourself, especially in a world that pulls you in every direction. That hour, sometimes just 20 minutes, was mine. No phone, no notifications, just effort, breath. That time became an anchor in my day, no matter what chaos came later. Emails, setbacks, distractions. I had already won a battle with myself. I had already invested in my own strength and clarity. That kind of foundation doesn't just change your body, it changes how you show up in the world. It also created momentum. When you start the day in motion, the rest of the day tends to follow suit. Energy creates more energy. Effort bleeds in focus. Focus leads to better decisions. Better decisions create better outcomes. It all starts with movement. Not waiting to feel ready, not negotiating with yourself, not getting lost in overthinking. Just starting, just pushing yourself into that uncomfortable zone where the real work begins. Because once you make sweating daily a habit, you stop waiting for motivation. You stop relying on external validation. You become your own fuel source. We live in a world addicted to noise. Everywhere you go, something is trying to hijack your attention. Notifications buzzing, news updates flashing, algorithms pulling you deeper into endless scroll holes. It's constant and it's not neutral. That noise isn't just background distraction. It's shaping how you think, how you feel, and what you focus on. Once I realized how much of my energy was leaking out through pointless distractions, I knew I had to make a serious change. I didn't need more productivity hacks or better time management. I needed silence. I needed to unplug, not permanently, just long enough to reset, recharge, and actually hear myself think again. The habit that changed everything for me was simple but powerful. I carved out time every day to disconnect.
No screens, no social media, no noise, just silence, stillness,
Presence. The first few times it was uncomfortable. My brain was still buzzing like it was looking for the next dopamine hit. I kept reaching for my phone like some kind of reflex. That's when I realized how deep the habit went. I wasn't choosing what to focus on. My phone was, my environment was. The external world was steering the ship. Unplugging gave me the wheel back. It started with small windows. 10, 15 minutes without stimulation. Just sitting with my thoughts, going for a walk with no podcast, eating a meal without watching something. The more I did it, the more I realized how rare those moments had become. Silence felt foreign at first, even boring. But then something shifted. That quiet became powerful. I started getting ideas again. I started feeling things more clearly. I started processing thoughts instead of running from them. When there's no noise to drone it out, your inner voice gets louder. And that voice, that's where your intuition lives. That's where real clarity begins. Most people think they're tired or burned out because of how much they're doing. But a lot of that exhaustion comes from overstimulation, not just overworking. Your brain was never designed to absorb the amount of information we take in every day. By constantly reacting to every ping and post, you burn mental energy that never gets restored. Unplugging is like a factory reset for your mind. You don't realize how much space you're missing until you make some. And that space, that's where creativity lives. That's where peace starts to grow. This habit also helped me notice which inputs were actually serving me. When I took away the noise, I could feel the difference between consuming with intention and consuming out of compulsion. Not all information is equal. Not every podcast, video, or article is helping you. Some are just cleverly packaged distractions. Unplugging forced me to be more selective. I started choosing inputs that aligned with who I wanted to become, not just what entertained me in the moment. There's also a deeper level to this. When you unplug, you get reacquainted with yourself. You start seeing your patterns more clearly. You become aware of the stories you've been running in the background. That awareness is the first step to breaking out of autopilot. Because the truth is, you can't fix what you're not aware of. And awareness doesn't come in a flash of genius. It comes in stillness. It comes when the noise fades and your real thoughts rise to the surface. Even 5 minutes of silence in the morning can change the whole tone of your day. Even one evening a week without screens can restore more energy than a full night of scrolling ever could. You don't have to move into the woods or meditate for hours. You just have to give yourself permission to disconnect from the outside world long enough to reconnect with the inside one. That reconnection is where your power comes from. That's where direction, focus, and peace live. And once you feel that again, the noise loses its grip. You realize you don't need it nearly as much as you thought you did. What you feed your mind matters just as much, if not more, than what you feed your body. Most people understand that eating junk food every day will mess up your energy, your body, your health. but they don't realize that consuming mental junk has the same effect on your focus, your drive, your mindset. Every tweet you scroll, every video you binge, every headline you read is input, and all that input is shaping your internal dialogue, whether you're aware of it or not. Once I started treating my mind like a muscle that needed clean fuel, everything shifted. I became more selective, more intentional, and way more focused. It started with one simple rule: no more mental garbage in the first hour of the day. That meant no scrolling, no news, no clickbait videos. Instead, I filled that window with something that made me better. A few pages from a book that challenged me, a podcast from someone operating at a high level, even just 5 minutes of writing out my thoughts. That small shift set a new tone. Instead of starting the day in reaction mode, I was starting with perspective. I wasn't letting the world program me. I was programming myself over time. This habit became non-negotiable. I began curating my inputs like my mental life depended on it, because it does. I unfollowed people who were constantly complaining, removed apps that served no purpose, stopped watching content that made me feel worse after than I did before. That mental diet cleanup was just as powerful as any detox or fitness plan. And just like with food, once you go clean for a while, you start to feel it immediately when you consume something toxic again. Your mind gets foggy.
Your focus drops.
Your motivation dips. That contrast is sharp, and it reinforces the value of staying intentional. The more I fed my mind with quality, the sharper I became. Ideas started flowing again. I had more clarity, more confidence, and way less mental clutter. I wasn't just reacting to life. I was actively shaping it. That's what good mental input does. It doesn't just entertain or inform you. It transforms you. It stretches how you think, challenges what you believe, and pushes you to level up. And once that becomes your new standard, you stop settling for cheap dopamine hits. You start craving things that build you. One of the biggest game changers was replacing mindless scrolling time with what I call mind expansion time. Just 15 to 20 minutes a day reading something that expands my worldview. It didn't have to be a full book. Just something that lit up my brain, something that made me think harder, feel deeper, or take action. That single habit reconnected me with curiosity, which had been buried under years of overstimulation and shallow content. Curiosity is a superpower, and the right inputs bring it back to life. This habit also made me hyper aware of how much content is designed to manipulate your thinking. Ads, algorithms, influencers, everyone's fighting for your attention. If you don't protect it, someone else will program it for you. Feeding your brain like your gains depend on it means taking ownership of what you allow in. It means choosing books over noise, long form over bite-sized distraction, depth over surface level stimulation. It means making your mind a place of strength, not chance, and it's not just about what you consume. It's about what you avoid. I stopped engaging in pointless debates. I stopped doom scrolling. I stopped letting the media tell me how to feel. That discipline created more room for creativity, calm, and control. When your mind isn't constantly reacting, it starts creating. When it's not overloaded, it gets sharper. Feeding your brain clean input daily isn't just a productivity hack. It's a full-on mindset shift. You stop being a passive consumer and start becoming an active creator of your reality. Most people break promises to themselves without even realizing it. They say they'll wake up early. They don't. They say they'll work out. They skip it. They say they'll start that project, but they keep delaying. And every time that happens, even in small ways, it chips away at their confidence. Not because someone else is judging them, but because deep down, they're proving to themselves that their own word doesn't carry weight. That was one of the biggest things I had to confront. I realized that if I couldn't trust myself to follow through on the small things, how could I expect to believe in myself when it came to the big things? Keeping promises to yourself isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. It's about building a track record with yourself. Confidence doesn't come from motivational quotes or hype. It comes from evidence, from being able to look yourself in the mirror and say, when I say I'll do something, I do it. That inner belief is built brick by brick, rep by rep, day by day. And the crazy part is, it doesn't even matter how small the promise is. If you tell yourself you're going to drink a glass of water first thing in the morning and you actually do it, that's a win. That's momentum. That's proof that your actions align with your intentions. When I started locking in on this habit, everything shifted. I stopped making huge, overwhelming commitments and started making small, winnable ones. Not because I was lowering my standards, but because I was rebuilding my self-trust. I told myself, I'll go for a 15-minute walk today, and I did. I'll meditate for 5 minutes. and I did. I'll write one paragraph, and I did. Those little wins started stacking, and over time, those small promises turned into bigger ones. My capacity expanded, but more importantly, my belief in myself deepened. The key was making promises that were realistic and specific, not vague ideas like be healthier or get more focused. I got granular. I'll train for 30 minutes before noon. I'll put my phone on airplane mode while I work. I'll read 10 pages before bed. Clear, doable, and time-bound. When you get specific like that, you take away the wiggle room. You either did it or you didn't. And that kind of accountability builds strength, because every time you keep a promise, you cast a vote for the identity you're trying to build. The truth is, how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you cut corners with yourself, you'll cut them with your work, your health, your relationships. But when you start treating your own word like a contract, your entire energy changes. You walk differently. You speak differently. You move through life with a quiet confidence because you know you're not full of it. You're not pretending. You're living in alignment. That kind of integrity isn't loud, but it's powerful. It's magnetic. People feel it. And more importantly, you feel it. This habit also showed me how much self-respect is tied to self-discipline. It's not about being hard on yourself. It's about showing yourself that you matter, that your time, your goals, your effort is worth something. You wouldn't constantly flake on a friend or co-worker and expect the relationship to stay strong. So do it to yourself and expect to feel confident and grounded. When you keep showing up for yourself, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable, you start building a foundation that doesn't shake even on the tough days, the ones where nothing seems to go right. If you can do just one thing you said you would, that's a win. That's how you prove to yourself that you're still in the game, that you're still in control, that your word still means something. And when that becomes you are, not just what you do, everything else in your life starts to level up with it.